Oh, Rogue One, such a 2016 thing to talk about, but you know what? I'm talking about it right now. Because I'm a rebel. And I'm wearing my SC leather jacket. Because I'm a rebel. And I'm skipping the cold open in the intro. Because I'm a rebel. And also because thematically it kind of makes sense, because Rogue One skipped the intro crawl, and so, I mean, I don't know, kind of poetic. But mostly... So Rogue One was pretty awesome. I saw it a couple weeks ago. I loved it. A lot of people loved it. A couple people admittedly didn't like the character development and felt there's a little underdeveloped in that area. And yeah, that's not Gareth Edwards' strong suit, making characters fully fleshed out. But story-wise, for a movie where, the story is described in the first paragraph of the original Star Wars movies, there's not a lot to work with, and yet he made a great movie out of this. I think this is close to being as good as this movie possibly could have been, and it is a lot better than it probably should have been. I was really rolling my eyes when I first heard this movie was coming out, and then I saw it in theaters, went in with super low expectations, and came out just blown away. If you can end your movie off on a good note, I'm a huge sucker, and they saved their best for last in this film. And gosh dang it, if that Darth Vader scene just wasn't the best. So for those of you who have been around for the past couple weeks, you know I have this weird rating system that I just came up with. Maybe I'll stick to it, maybe I'll drop it at some points. I'm gonna rate Rogue One popcorn on a rainy day. It's not perfection, it's not fantastic, amazing, but as far as what it is versus what it should have been, this is a great film. Definitely worth your time. Go check it out. But now that we got the review portion of the video out of the way, let's talk about what I wanted to talk about with this video. A lot of people are talking about the action scenes in Rogue One, and they're talking about the character development in Rogue One, and all the little Easter eggs in Rogue One. And of course they're talking about that Darth Vader scene. Seriously, I'm sorry if I spoiled this, but gosh dang it, that Darth Vader scene, just... But one thing that nobody seems to be talking about, and I think it's a huge part of this movie, is the cinematography. And I don't mean, wow, that planet looked pretty, or wow, that thing looked convincing. I mean in terms of the shots that were made to tell the story within the story. If you've been around the channel for a while, you may have heard me bring up the term mise-en-scène, which is the little stuff in the story, or in the visuals that helps tell the story. Like in some movies, you'll have iron bars next to a character to show, oh yeah, that character is kind of trapped. Or in Nightcrawler, when Lou Bloom is getting more and more into the night crawling scene and into making that paper for the news and not caring about other people's lives. You see the colors green and gold become more prominent in the background in all the images, kind of feeding the idea that money is driving everything.
You might not have even noticed, but your brain did.
It's subtle storytelling, it's subtly feeding you stuff, and that's the type of stuff that I love, because you come back to films and you notice it later and you're like, wow, you guys really put a lot of thought in this. It's not just the director that had the vision, people who were in other departments bought into it. It's one of the many things I love about filmmaking, is everyone gets to add their little touch to the story and kind of enhance stuff. But visual storytelling can go beyond colors and beyond symbolism. There's another aspect to it, and one of the great things that Gareth Edwards has specialized in both Godzilla and in this movie, is size and scale and what it adds to the story. If you've taken any basic intro film production class, not even in college, in high school or in middle school or at a camp, they'll probably have told you about the idea of if you're showing the camera from below and you're looking up, then clearly that is a powerful figure. And if you're showing the camera from up and looking down, oh, that character has very little power in the situation. And that's how you can use scaling to show where people stand in a relationship. In Godzilla and Rogue One, Gareth Edwards takes it to another level. I haven't seen Godzilla on a laptop screen or on a smaller TV screen. I saw Godzilla and Rogue One in theaters, and I felt the size of these things that were on screen. In Godzilla, it was like these creatures were just too big to even comprehend, and that's one of the big aspects of that story. The whole theme of Godzilla is, yeah, these creatures are just so big that we can't even touch them, and we have to rely on Godzilla to kind of balance nature out, because we're not even affecting these creatures in any way. Until, of course, the very end where they blew up the eggs and all that. Spoilers for Godzilla. I'm just spoiling everything right now. But Gareth Edwards took that and brought it to Rogue One and used it in even more of a subtle storytelling way. I can't really bring up a lot of images right now, because even after however many weeks it's been out, I can't get screenshots of some of the shots I'm talking about, but every single ship leaving the planet scene has the planet just taking up the entire screen, and there's a little dot, there's a little ship kind of coming out, which makes sense, because planets, they're planets, they're huge. huge. But then you've got that, and then you've got that scene where the Death Star is kind of blowing up the base, and it just eclipses the sun. And then, you know that scene in the trailer where they're flying through the dust storm, like, oh wow, that's a weird storm. That's the planet. Like, that is a straight up 2012, or 2012, whatever that Roland Emmerich movie was, scene. The entire Earth is coming up and about to swallow them whole from the tremors of this laser blast. And again, in the action scene, they're almost barely recognizable in just this cluster of just dirt and debris and rocks just flying all over the place. And then you finally get down on the planet, you get to the battle, and then you see the AT-AT walkers coming around, and that is straight up a scene straight out of Godzilla, where they're up there, and we are down here. So yeah, Gareth Edwards made stuff feel big in this movie. So what? Well, it goes along perfectly with the theme of the story. It's one thing to tell the audience, oh yeah, these rebels are small, they're not super significant. If we just had the movie the entire time tell us, oh yeah, we don't stand a chance against the Empire, we're nothing, we're not gonna do anything really. On one level you'd be like, yeah, sure, they have that weapon, but like, you both have guns, I mean, you handled yourself pretty well in the final battle, you guys got a shot. So if we are told that they are insignificant and can do nothing to the Empire, then, I mean, we're not going to believe it. That old adage of show, don't tell. And when we're shown all these images, we're kind of put in the mood of, oh yeah, there's a huge, massive universe out there, and it really, you feel the size of the Empire. You feel how small the rebels are. And when you show all the ships flying against these massive planets, or against all these massive things blowing up, or you show how small these massive Star Destroyers are against the even more massive Death Star, that's all well and good. But even more effective is when we're put in the shoes of the rebels, and we're down there on the planet, and we see how big everything is from the people's perspective, and we're like, wow, this is intimidating. And so when people say, oh man, I didn't really relate to the characters, I didn't empathize with them at all, I didn't really get sucked in, I respect your opinion. I respect how you felt while watching this movie. I respectfully disagree. I was completely sucked into this movie because I was put into the movie. I was put into a situation where you're standing outside of a temple and you see a wall of earth coming at you where there was once a landscape of nothing. And I'm just like, wow, okay, let's get in the ship and maybe not die. Probably 99% sure we're gonna die. And like it or not, going into this movie, we all kind of knew this movie was going to be about dying with honor. By Gareth Edwards' own admission, and by pretty much everything we knew going into this movie, this was going to be a war movie that was about standing your ground when you knew the chips were down, and there are thousands of enemies out there, there's only a few of you, and help is not coming for hours. It's like 300, or like the early morning shift at McDonald's. Dude, you gotta move the line. There's like 3 of us and 60 of them. How many McMuffins can one person order? This is insanity. It's dire, you're small, they're huge, and so when you see that shot in the film where they've set off where they have all the explosives set up and everything is set into place, and the mousetrap is ready to go, and you see things from Krennic's perspective, and there's an explosion over there, and there's an explosion over there, and there's an explosion over there, and it looks like there's thousands of rebels around there when really we know there's only 6, and the tables have turned. Now suddenly they are terrified and outmatched, and there's all this confusion and panic about they don't know what's going on. They think they're suddenly the smaller group here, and worst of all, they can't see their enemy. And just having that set up and pay off from a purely visual perspective is awesome. The goal in the final battle, at least the first part, later when the rebels show up and we get a cool, legit space battle, that's always awesome. But in the first part of that third act, it's all about making 10 men feel like 1,000. It's how do we get these mice to look like Godzilla-like creatures? How do we intimidate something that is just so much bigger and more powerful than we are? And that is an awesome aspect to the film. It's essentially the next logical step from Gareth Edwards' Godzilla. It's okay, these things going on are just so massive. And I bet that's actually how Gareth Edwards felt. These films, these Star Wars films, they're so massive, they're so just out there and huge and such a part of pop culture and cinema. And I've got a story about essentially like 2 sentences of the Star Wars universe. It's so big, it's so massive, how do we leave our mark on it? You do it smart, you pick and choose what you want to focus on, you set everything in place, and when everything is right and set up, bunch of explosions. So yeah, I fully recognize that Godzilla 2014 and Rogue One were lacking a little bit in terms of characters. There's not a bunch of cool lines, there's not a bunch of cool, like, down-to-earth moments, aside from, I mean, Bryan Cranston freaking killed it in Godzilla. In the 2 or 3 scenes he was in there, he was awesome, but aside from that. And I love great character moments in movies, but these 2 films bring something that I legitimately have not experienced in a theater before. Just being sucked into a movie from that visual perspective. These movies, these big time, like, blockbuster, end of the world, massive scale, super weapon movies, they're not gonna go away anytime soon. I don't want them to. They're a nice staple in the film industry. They're cool to have every couple of years. I just think if you want people to continually get sucked into these types of movies, you gotta play around a bit with how you make the film. Bring your own flavor to it. Bring some spiciness. Throw in some spice to that visual aspect of the film, if that makes sense. I'm not saying every movie now needs to suddenly just add, like, a size scale aspect to it, like, here's how big this thing is, here's how small this thing is. Obviously, different stuff works for different films. I'm just saying, I'd like to see this level of creativity brought back to just big budget action films. Rogue One gave me a unique experience from all the other Star Wars films out there, and a unique experience from a lot of blockbusters this year. And I get the criticisms on it, I get all of that, and I don't care. And I don't care because from a pure craftsmanship perspective, this is a well-made movie that had a lot of heart put into it and took risks and just... I like it. I like it a lot. I'm a story guy, don't get me wrong. I think I've just defended myself twice on this when I don't really have to. But I'm into characters, I'm into dialogue, I'm into scripts and the backbone of the movie. But at the same time, I've seen a lot of movies. I haven't seen all the movies, but I've seen a lot of movies over the years. And when you can do something that I legitimately have not seen before with a movie, and then you can take that and then apply it in a storytelling way and just add another layer to a movie that is much better than it should have been, I'm impressed. I'll forgive a lot of the sins in a movie if it does something that is that cool. But anyway, that's gonna be it for this video, guys. It's basically the sequel to Death of the Author, Why Christian Movies Suck. I've already got the Let's Fix series going on, but I like these videos where I can talk about film theory and just concepts in film that I think are awesome and what we can learn as, like, I want to be a filmmaker. I want to get into this, and I think it's cool to see what we can learn from these films. Both good and bad, there's something to be learned from a lot of films. So yeah. I also wanted to talk about Doctor Strange at some point. There's some cool stuff in that film. What do you guys think? Should I do a video like this on Doctor Strange and how some of the themes in that story were pretty cool and what we can learn from that? Just kidding, I already recorded that. I don't need your permission, because I'm a wizard. That actually went a lot smoother than I thought it would. It's like a Thieves Guild hood right here. Skyrim, anyone? So anyway, yeah, you can expect the Doctor Strange video to come out next week where I talk about some of the themes in that movie and why I think actually some Christian films can learn from that. I don't want to alienate some of my more non-religious members of my audience, but I think there's a lot of stuff in the Christian film industry that can be fixed, and it's something I care about. Because I think there are some well-meaning people out there who are making dramatized sermons rather than actual movies. I think that can be fixed. So yeah, that video is coming out next week. Keep an eye out for that. But anyway, what did you guys think of Rogue One? What did you think of, like, cool cinematography in general? When was the last time you were legitimately blown away by how a movie was made? By just something happened in the movie, a special effect, or a visual thing, or something that just kind of blew you away. Comment below, tell me all about it, let's get a discussion going. I'll see you guys next week with another video, but until next time, God bless, and stay saucy.